In this video, we're going to explore how we can create a nice hover effect where we create and change the border color of the line chart, but also create this nice annotation line, which will only be visible when we hover on the data point itself. So this creates a nice level of interactivity and looks quite appealing for your users. So let's explore how we can create this nice effect on Chart.js. In this video, we're going to focus on how to change border color and add annotation line on hover in Chart.js. And this is quite interesting because with this, you can create a high level of interactivity. Because with Chart.js, the only reason it grabs someone's attention is the visual plus the interaction on that visual. So let's start and explore how we're going to do that. So first of all, I want to get the default code. Just make sure you go to chartjs3.com and then you go to getting started. In here you can find the chunk of code here below. Just copy this code so we have a starting point. And if you want to understand what this code does, make sure you watch this video. It breaks it down nicely. So what I'm going to do in here, I'm going to paste this in here and then I'm going to copy this title for myself, put it in there. Alright. And for you, obviously, you can skip that. So once I save this, I'm not done yet because there's a few items here. So we have here the following. You have here what we have, a bar chart, and I don't want a bar chart, I want a line chart. And next I want to change the color here. I'm going to remove all of this and just keep a single color and put a comma here. Same story here. A single color and put a comma here. Alright. So now we have this here, and I'm going to remove this or just change this to tension to make the line nice elastic. So if I save this now, refresh, you can see here we have this nice elastic line and it has a single color only. Beautiful. So what I want to do next is basically focus on changing the color, and to change the color on hover, that's quite straightforward. The moment we hover on it here, we want to have a color. For this, we just select here the hover function, which is a part of the interaction configuration. So if you go to the configuration, you go to interactions, and then down here you can find here everything related to hover. So just make sure you get in the hover, and the hover will trigger only the moment you hover over it with your mouse. So when you hover over the canvas itself, and then what we want to do here, the mode that we want is we hover, but where do we hover on? Well, we hover on the data set. That's the moment we want to trigger it. And you can put it here, and then you can say here, and this is optional, it's not really necessary, intersect, and they should be set on true, but this is optional because it is by default set on true. So let me double check. I forgot the comma here. Make sure you have a comma there as well because it's continuation, so it can read afterwards the skills. So if I refresh here now and I see I get another error, let's double check. Data set is not defined. Alright. I need to make sure that this is a string, of course. Save. There we are. So once I hover over it here, nothing happens. But if I intersect this part, I should expect a color. We don't have it yet. So what we're going to do here, of course, is hover border color. And this, by default, let me show you. I'm going to hide this. By default, this is only triggering only on the point. So if I refresh here and I hover, you can see here the point is becoming green. That specific border is being triggered. But now I want, of course, from left to right, the entire line. With this, if I save this and refresh, now if I hover over it, you can see now the line becomes completely green. And if you want to make sure that what's the difference, if the intersect would be set to false, you will see it will change the color the moment we hover over the entire chart area. So this is why we want to make sure that we have the data set, but only on intersect. And intersect basically means like intersection, which is what we call a crossroad or a junction where we cross each other. So this is very important to remember. So the moment we cross this point, or we cross this or hit this point, at that moment the color should be activated. So I can remove this because by default it is set on true already. Alright, so there we are. We have this part now. Now what I want to do is I want to have a nice colorful, what we call that, an annotation line. And this annotation line will be a nice thick line, making it here with a nice greenish background color as well the moment we hover over it. Alright, so to do this, we want to do it at the moment we see the tooltip, all of those things, so we're going to work with this. First of all, what I want to do here is just some tiny cosmetic or aesthetic adjustment. I'll say your plugins. I'm going to trigger the tooltip because I see here this. I like the tooltip to be pointed down. Basically, this arrow should point down here so that the cloud will be here above. That looks far more appealing for me. So I say tooltip. So plugins, tooltip, and then in the tooltip we will say here Y align. Then we can say here, this is a string, bottom. So we point the caret, and the caret is a triangle here down. So if I refresh now, and if I hover over it, you can see now the cloud is up and the caret is pointing south, basically. Alright, so now we have this. Next part, what we need to do here is, because what we want to do here is we want to create the annotation line. That would mean that we need to create a plugin for this. So in here, after the comma, or sorry, after the options, so I'm going to remove this. I need to be just below the options. As you can see, this is the options part. And just here, we'll say plugins. And in this plugins bracket, and here we're going to give it a name. We can give this annotation line. We can give it that name. That's proper. That's suitable. All right. And once we give this line, we need this name. This name must be consistent elsewhere. So what we're going to do now is we're going up here. And let's see here. We can just do it here between. Then in here, we're going to say the following. This will be the annotation line block. And we say here constant annotation line equals curly braces, semicolon. And in here, the first thing we need to do is ID. And what is the ID name? Equal to the constant, equal to the plugin name. Basically, the plugin name and the ID name must be identical, or else you will have a error because it cannot find this specific value here. Very important. Then we do here, comma, and then what we're going to say is the following. We're going to say here, before drawing, so we're going to give it a function, and this function will be triggered, or basically, sorry, we're going to get the argument of chart, and chart consists of all the arguments of the canvas. So this is very important because we will need certain values of the canvas. And then in here, we have the arrow, which is basically a arrow function, which is basically a function, just a shorthand for writing it. And then in here, we're going to give it an if statement. So if, and the reason why we're doing this if statement is basically if we hover over a certain point, we need to get there that exact location. That location is the key to draw, for example, a line top to bottom here. So we say here if chart.tooltip dot underscore active. So if it is active, and chart dot tooltip dot underscore active dot length, meaning and there's any value, any length. So this can be because some tooltips have multiple values or multiple tooltips in one, especially if you have multiple lines. So if this is true, in this case, or only then, we want to do certain things. So what we say here is a constant. We say ctx equals chart.ctx. To understand here what we did, we can grab this one first. Let's get this to first check what this really means. We say console.log. Because basically chart.ctx is basically this .ctx. So here, if we have just only the chart, refresh, and then if we hover over it, you can see now it triggers something. And it triggers always the exact data point where we are hovering. You can see here right now the height, or this is the canvas itself. Do I get the tooltip here? Probably not yet, but you can see already some details of the tooltip. We can see the caret, caret x, caret y. We can see here the x and y values as well. We can see the y align that we set on bottom, which is correct because we set this on bottom in the tooltip. So it already gets a lot of information. And this is the active, length is 0. We want, of course, here eventually the 0 value, which is the first tooltip in this array. Because there's only one tooltip here on this point, and here's just 1, etc., etc. So this is all zeros. So we have this, and you can see here every time we hover or we change our position, we should have a new tooltip with the exact position in here. So in the tooltip, you will see here now the X and Y changes, 240 by 224. All right, so if I go here, we will see here, then if I scroll down again, we have here in the tooltip, the position is now 107 by 0. Am I correct? I'm not sure if that was 100% accurate. Y is 0. I have no idea how this was 0. Yeah, or that's the title. Am I clicking maybe something wrong? No, it's in the tooltip. It doesn't matter for now. We're going to get, probably it's this one. I'm not sure. I'm questioning this one, but it doesn't matter. Let's start to work on it, and then we can see how it eventually responds. Alright, so we have this. We know now that this is triggered every time we hover over somewhere. So this is why we have this, and then .ctx would be basically in the chart. .ctx, this is the ctx part. And we get here all of the information, whatever we need. Alright, very important. So this is basically a shorthand as well. So now we have that. What we want to do now is the ctx.save, which is basically this one. We want to save this, and what that really means is saving all this data that we have here above in the canvas, because we're going to draw something in the canvas. Once we did this, we're going to get the following. We say the constant. Then we want to get the active point here, and the active point is basically here in the chart tooltip active. That's a shortcut. And then which one, of course, we want to active 0. Alright? The 0 is the tooltip, because there's one tooltip here, and that's the tooltip 0. No matter where you are, it's in a different index, but the index is 0 on this point, because there's only one array of this specific tooltip. So we've got this as well, and with that, we can now start to play around and create our lines. So to make it simple, we're going to say here, ctx.begin path, where you can indicate the starting point of the path. And then what we want to do here is the following. We'll say that ctx.move tool. And with the move tool, we are going to start drawing the position. The position is always to the X and Y. And this is the starting point, or basically where should it start. So if we want to hover on here, we must start here, basically, somewhere here. So on this line here, so we should know here the position. How can you find the position? If I scroll down here, you will find it eventually in here. This is the position. Let's grab one more time. Let's check one more time the tooltip to see that, if I'm not mistaken, you can see here the X and Y. So I'm going to grab this. How do I grab this? By tooltip. Tooltip X, tooltip Y. Alright? So what we're going to do now is just to get this specific, or basically this one here, I'm going to do this. To make sure you understand this, I say here, console, not like that, console.log tooltip.x. Alright? And then we have another one. That will be tooltip.y. I'm going to hide these for now. Refresh. And now, as you can see, we get the position in pixels. Alright? And you can see here, everywhere where we go, we will grab every specific point here. So this is good, because this is exactly what we want. So now what we want to do is basically get these values, put it in here, because that will be our starting point. But what we want to be is really on the X value. We want the X more than the Y for now, because the Y will be top to bottom, and I'm going to show you the chart area command for that. So we have the Y. So we know this is 500 pixels, and this one here is 370 pixels. What really happens is basically this. It goes in, looks here from the X axis. Let's search here, alright, and this point here apparently is 370. And then if we move on here, this should be 500, and this should be 500 plus 592. And the reason why this is, you can select this here, and you can see here the exact position. By grabbing this here, looking at this, and here we say the width, and let's double check this one width here, is that really correct? I would say that this should be not 500, because you can see our width is 700, and this is maybe 30 pixels, so this should be 670. So let me double check, am I really correct, or do I have a mistake? Let's go to the console log, go back here. This is 592. Alright, so let's double check this. I'm going to test this to see if this is really 100% accurate on our item here. So maybe I'm missing something. I'm going to put it in here. We're going to start drawing and just see how it responds. Here I'm going to put in the starting point will be 0, and the reason why it's 0 is on the very top here. So and then here at the down will be eventually the item. Oh, 0 should not be here on the top, so it's the chart area, because basically it would mean here above. As you can see here, the canvas, this part here above. This is 350, or this is 0. Here down would be 350, so it should be somewhere here between. For that we need the chart area as well. So the chart area is this. I guess I need to show you this as well before I even continue on. Now after that, we're going to double check our work here. So we say your chart area, and we're going to grab the top. And the reason I'm going to grab the top is the chart area is the top. Click on the console, you can see here 32, meaning that this part or this part here is 32. And that is correct because we have here, this here would be 350 pixels from top to bottom, but the chart area is the area where the chart is drawn in. So that is this part here, from here to here to here to here. So those 4 angles or these lines here. Alright, so let's start to use this now. So we have here, we can say here, this will be our top area. And once we have this, the next part is the, let's see, here we have, we could say here a CTX, that line, or oh, sorry, no, not yet. We have here line 2. Alright, so here we have the move to, which would indicate the starting point. And then eventually we need to have the ending point of this. So the ending point of the line will be basically from starting here at the X, Y, going all down here. So this would mean if it would be here, we have this line here, the X value will never move because it will consistently go down. We only focus on the Y value. The X value stays consistent. So it's a straight line, comma. But here, we want to have the chart area, but not the chart area top, but we want to have the chart area bottom. So we're going to grab here this, and we just say here, bottom. And once we did this, the next thing what we want to do here is of course make sure that we have a line. So we're going to say here, CTX line width, so we indicate the thickness of the line. And this will be equals to, this is a number, and let's give this, I guess, we can do this 10 pixels. Next, what we want to do here is give it a color. So we say here, CTX dot stroke, stroke style. What will be the color? In our case, I would like to take the color that we use here, green. We can say here green, and probably eventually we should give it an alpha value. So let's give it RGBA, and in here we make this 0 because this the first one is red, second one is green. So we say 200, and then again 0 for the blue color, and then here make it 0.2. Meaning 20% visibility, 80% transparency on this. So that's the alpha level of 0.2. Alright, so now we have this, and the final one is we're going to draw the stroke line now. And why stroke? This is basically a line, but it's a stroke. Why stroke? Because we're working in a canvas. Canvas is basically in the thinking setup, or the theme is a painting. So we call the canvas, and a line with your brush, with your paintbrush, is called a stroke, a brush stroke. So this is why they use the term stroke here. So, which is very creative, by the way, but that's alright. So once we have this, the next thing what we need to do here is we put in a stroke, and then we say CTX.restore to reset all the values here. We don't want any of these values being redrawn anywhere else. So once we have this, we can save this now. We have this all, and let's double check now if you hover over it. Alright. And you can see here something is off. So I have to double check why our line chart here, or there's, as I suspected, there was something weird with the positioning. So let's double check here. What do we have? What am I missing here? So let's check here. We have the CTX chart. save. And what I want to do here, alright, so I'm going to check what's going on here. Alright, I already figured out, I saw my mistake here. Alright, so let me explain what's going on here. Although I'm quite happy to discover this because this would of course be very useful for some of my other videos. It's this, basically what I did here, and this is something what happens when I basically don't pay much attention because I'm talking and then I forget what I'm doing here, or basically not really forget, but I'm not paying attention. So we have this here. This is a tooltip X. Alright. And remember we had an active point here, but I was not using this here. I was using the tooltip X, and it created an issue here. What is the issue? Basically, the tooltip X indicates the position of the tooltip itself, as you can see here. This is why just the number, I was already questioning what's going on, why this number was not 100% accurate, is because we're not on the active point, we're going to pinpoint on the tooltip where it starts. And I don't want that. I want to be on the active point here. Yes, so let me show you what this is, because this here was not 100% accurate here. So what we're going to do is, basically in here, I'm going to grab this one. I'm going to show you this first, because this is very important to understand. Save that. Refresh. Alright? So we get this positioning here, and I'm hovering over here. But when you look at it, you will see here in the elements the exact data points here, X and Y. And now this is correct, because I know these numbers here. This one should be very close to 700. And if I scroll down here, as you can see here, it is 677. And why 700? Because the canvas is 700, as you can see here. You can see here the width, 700, and this space here between was about or approx 30 pixels. So you can see here that is the item that we need. So all we have to do here, let me go one more time here, just go to the console log, just to figure out where we need to grab it. We need to go in here. We go in the element, and in the element we need to get the X and the Y. So if I do that one, so the dot element dot X, and I will get the other one, which is the element dot Y. Save that, refresh, move over. There we are. We get now the correct values. As you can see here, these are the correct ones. So now we have this. Let's copy this. And let's see. Oh, we don't need that one, but we only need the X value. Put it in there and put it in there. This one I will remove now. Save that, refresh, and there we are. So now we have this nice green background color here. Beautiful. And what I want to do is just to make sure, you can see here the point radius should have a nice green background color on hover as well. So I'll just get this one here and hover background color green, comma. If I save this, what happens? There we are. So now it becomes solid and it looks quite nice. And with this, you create a certain level of interactivity here. Beautiful. And we can make it even more thicker to make it a bit more clear. Let's put this instead of 10 pixels. Let's make this 20 pixels. Save that. Refresh. There we are. So with this, we created a hover effect on here, plus a nice annotation line as well. So with this, you create a nice level of interactivity that grabs your user to make it a bit more exciting. Thank you for watching this video, and I hope you enjoy it. And if you enjoy this video, you probably will enjoy this one as well. And if you're interested in Chart.js, check out in the description box the link directing to my Chart.js course where you can learn everything about Chart.js. And finally, of course, make sure you subscribe to my channel.